Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of the Silver and Blue Insights podcast. I'm your host, Justin Alonso. Joined on the other side of Discord, we have Andrew Mendez. Is it Mendez or
It is Mendez.
Mendez? Mendez.
Mendez. Mindes.
All right, perfect. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. Football season is right around the corner. We got less than 3 weeks, 20 days until Cowboys versus Browns, week 1. So,
Yeah, until we get to hear
I'm gonna
Tom Brady in his broadcast debut.
not excited for that. Definitely not excited for that.
I
But
feel he,
there's a
he,
mute button for a reason.
he is either going to be a big Cowboy, I feel like he's going to be a Dak guy, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
So
think
I
he'll
kind
love
of
that.
am on board with it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's gonna go both ways.
I'll applaud him for that. If he praises Dak, I'll be like, good job,
Then
Brady.
then then I like him. Anyways, but just to get into a quick recap of kind of some injuries, contract stuff, just signings, stuff along that line, kind of like that jumble of things. So first off, Dak. I don't think we talked about it. He had a ankle soreness and missed a practice. He looks completely fine. It was just a precautionary thing.
Mm.
Like if that's a regular season practice, he probably is playing. Even if he doesn't, who cares? He's a 9-year
Yeah,
veteran.
no.
Like this practice doesn't mean as much to him as it does to other guys. So it's just like who
Yeah, I
cares?
mean, like, non-story, like, he's fine now, so
Yeah.
not really
Like
worried.
Dak, where there was someone I saw that Dak wearing a boot while on vacation for a day was a like burn the house down like insane story, but Justin Herbert probably not being ready for week 1 because he got surgery on his plantar fasciitis is not being talked about at all.
I mean, that's just the Cowboys. That's
It's
just
just
Dak.
yeah, it's the
Different
Cowboys
standards,
effect.
different teams.
Yeah. And then he also was asked about the contract, and he said contract talks are quote unquote on the right way, and he said that he had a lot of confidence. So who knows if it gets done, when it gets done. Um,
I don't see it getting done for the season. I don't know. I feel like we have not heard enough on the Dak front. They're just all the talk is about CD, or not all the talk, but most of the talk is about CD. That I can't see them getting both done because CD will get done.
I think it's a thing of, and someone made a really good point. I forget who it was on Twitter, but I don't see a world where maybe not this off season, but where one gets signed and the other doesn't. So say that they signed CD this off season, that I don't really see a world where Dak doesn't resign next year, but I think it's a lot more likely that they sign neither than they only sign one.
Why do you think that?
Just because, think about it this way: if you're Ceedee, why would you want to play with no quarterback? If you're Dak, why would you want to play for a team that has sandbagged you constantly in the media? Then you had the best wide receiver in football last year, and then they take away your number one weapon, also giving you no run game whatsoever, and they place all the blame on you. Well, you're the most criticized player in football just because of the team you play on.
That's a fair point, honestly. It's like either go all in or just like rebuild, which is
Yeah,
kind of what Cowboys would be doing if they let Dak and CD go.
which is stupid because CD's a player you build around, but that's besides the point. But speaking on CD, he is still not reported to camp, and we are now in the cryptic wide receiver social media post phase. Did you see the post
I
that he?
saw his Spider-Man,
Yeah,
the mask.
so he posted a picture of Tobey Maguire in the black suit Spider-Man pulling the mask down. What do you think of that?
He's just upset. He doesn't want to talk. He's just sad. He doesn't even want to talk to Jerry anymore. He just wants it to be over with.
I think that there's so many ways this could be interpreted that I'm not even gonna try. You could think about it as him being the villain, him no more Mr. Nice Guy, him suiting up to get ready for camp. There's so many ways to just look at it that it's I don't think you can really give an answer. Um, but who knows? Did you see the picture of him like bulked up?
Yeah, no, I saw he gained, I think, what they said, 13 pounds of muscle, or he's up 13 pounds since
Yeah,
last
I
season.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Why, you think it's going to make him slower?
Maybe not slower, but like a big thing with him was kind of like his agility, or like kind of like
Yeah,
the agility and like the body control. So I'm not saying he's not going to be that, but I'm just curious how much that affects him.
there's going to be upsides and negatives at the
Yeah.
same time. So, like, like you're saying, maybe his agility goes down, but at the same time, his like tackle breaking abilities could get better. So,
Yeah.
I'm not too worried. Like, I
Oh
don't
no, I'm
think.
not that worried either. I just don't necessarily know it's going to be more positive than negative. Like even if it's like a
Okay.
little bit, it's just something I kind of want to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
because I
I
feel like
do want to talk.
you go.
Mhm. Or you go, just finish what you're saying.
I was just gonna say I feel like he was kind of at like the perfect body type where he was. So I'm just curious how changing that's gonna affect it. But go on.
I did want to talk about, I know we texted about it, but for the podcast, the LOL tweet. The LOL
Yeah,
tweet was amazing. That
yeah.
was, I mean, like, it's not like we've never seen stuff like that before, like with GMs and players, like we have, but I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah, and let me I'm gonna LOL tweet. I'm just gonna find it just so I can read it off for people. I know exactly where it is because I was stalking CD's Twitter today. And it's one of his most recent tweets. Get this up, CD Lamb. Okay. So Jerry Jones said that I don't have any urgency to get it done. Um, and the question was kind of it's just an old man that needs to go to bed. It's like here, okay, Grandpa, that's really cool. Time to take your meds. Go to bed. Here's a pudding cup. Like, just it's it's Jerry Jones. That's all you can really say. He just
There it
needs to
is.
not have mic privileges.
No, he will though. He will be
Oh no,
continuing
he
to get,
will. He will,
yeah,
but he just
forever till he
shouldn't.
dies.
I'm not even sure that'll stop him. Um, but yeah,
But yeah, so that was crazy. Not like crazy surprising, just like hilarious that
hmm,
like that's the way that Jerry Jones is finding out CeeDee Lamb's thoughts is him quote tweeting
on
a
Twitter,
quote
yeah.
like yeah, LOL. They did offer him 33 million a year though. So what did you think
Which
of
is
that offer?
which I it's interesting because sports contracts are so weird to me in the sense of people always talk about like, oh, someone wants to be the highest paid, someone wants to. I don't think it's necessarily that they obviously they want to, but I think it's a lot more the agent wanting the highest number possible. Because say CeeDee Lamb takes that, he would get a couple million less than Jefferson, kind of on like the baseline, kind of like the numbers up front. But then when you include taxes, he's gonna make a lot more. So it's not necessarily a thing of he needs the number one contract, he needs the number one numbers and all that. It's more I think the agent kind of just like, okay, the way it is every new guy that's elite. If you're like a top five guy at any position, you're setting the market when you sign a deal. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter who you are. If you're a top five, even some positions top seven guy at that position, when you sign a new deal, especially when you're a young player that doesn't have many red flags, if any, like CD, you're gonna reset the market. So I think it's like, yeah, it's not a bad offer. It's close, but I just don't think that there's any way that he signs a deal where he doesn't reset the market.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the absolute minimum he should be signing for right now is 36 million or even 35.5. Just he has to do something to pass Jefferson because
Yeah.
like you said, like there's an argument. Not that I'm saying he's number one, but like there's an argument for him to be made for number one. There's some guys that you just can't even make an
Last year
argument, but
he
they
was the number one.
yeah. So like there's some guys that you can't even make the case that they're the number one, but they still reset the market. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't know what the Cowboys are doing here. Like, you just can't, like,
Yeah.
there's some guys where it's like, there's tricky like contract situations, but with CD, there's really nothing.
Mhm.
Like, there's not much reason. Either you trade him or sign him right now,
Yeah.
which
Just get the
they're
shit
obviously not
done.
going to trade him.
Yeah.
Please,
Um,
enough with the Instagram, enough with the update. Just
some of it
sign the
was
D.
funny on Instagram. How people were like, "Oh, that means he's going to a rival." Another person said like Peter Parker canonic like in canon of Marvel is a Jets fan, so that means that he's going to the Jets, and just like dumb shit like that, which I thought was like pretty funny. But let's stop laughing and start celebrating because he's back. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't, one thing I did want to, while we're on the topic, is like, what do you think like Jerry Jones realistically like does? Like, do you like? I don't think he like does much. Like, I think he's just there to be a talking head. Like, I think he's kind of lost it at this point, and they just like they're like, all right, we're gonna tell you what to say, Jerry. Like, he's just like a puppet. But Stephen Jones and the whole front office pretty much does everything. Like, Jerry might be the final say guy because he is the owner, but I don't think he does much.
I think that he is in court all day with paternity suits. Had to get a jab in there, just on that. But I I kind of think it's almost a thing of he doesn't really look at all the like I think that Will McClay has like the best job security in all of sports because he is one incredible at his job at drafting. Two, he never has to go in front of the media because Jerry does it for him. So I think he has some things where like he'll have the final say and like they'll go one way or the other because of it. Um, we're kind of almost how this is going to be a very obscure analogy, but typically like a judge like in a trial will kind of give both sides an even amount. Like they may like side one side with this side with like the defense one side one time, then the next time they'll side with the prosecutor or kind of like stuff like that. Where I kind of feel that's almost how it is with him and Will McClay and everyone else, where they kind of, okay, Jerry, we'll give you what you want half the time, but then we get it the other half. And just kind of how you see that with like in the draft room too. I think that's more so in the draft room where you see like videos where like some guys want this
Mhm.
guy, but then like half the time they'll be like, okay, Jerry, let's do that, or the other half Jerry will be like, okay, let's do that, or just kind of stuff along that line where it's kind of like a 50-50 in a way.
So you think like he does a lot, but like he's balanced out. That's kind of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, just because I don't see how realistically he would give up that much control. Just with how big
Yeah,
of an
no,
ego he has, that's like tough for me to believe.
I can get what you're trying to say, but at this a certain point, it's like I think they've kind of like I'm not saying you're wrong about the
Hmm.
50-50,
I just
but
made up a number. I'm not saying like,
I feel like he's like pretty old at this point. Like he's there might just be like God, especially his son might be convincing him like, hey, like you don't know as much as everyone else in the organization does.
yeah.
Like you don't like there's much more smarter people. So like that's why I do think he probably has stepped a little bit back in terms of like decision making.
I just, with how big his ego is and a lot of the stuff that comes out about how like it took him this long to get Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor, I just think that he has to be still has a lot of influence.
All right. I mean, honestly, I can completely see that perspective. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I don't know. I just that's just my viewpoint. But
Yeah,
I think more people would probably agree with you just because they like like what you said. Jerry has such an ego, and he's always been the owner.
yeah.
But
Did you have anything else on the contract situation stuff?
um, not really. No. Did you have any final thoughts
No.
on CD?
Just get it done. It's that simple.
Yeah,
But then
please.
moving on to kind of,
Okay, actually,
yeah,
we're
go on.
before we finish prediction. Like, what date do we think the CD Lamb extension gets done? If you had
It is
to,
gonna be August 22nd while I'm moving in,
okay.
and I'm not gonna see it for like an hour.
I'm gonna say it is going to be August 25th, so
Okay.
Sunday.
I
That's the
think
day
you're
I'm.
getting into some dangerous territory. If you, just with how not being in camp and you see so many guys that just wait and then aren't in shape. I think he is in shape, but it's just still like the not seeing him produce and then expecting him to be what he was. So it's just a little nerves the
Yeah, it
longer
is
that it
scary.
goes on. Um, but then speaking of another situation, that was scary. Mozzie Smith had an allergic reaction to peanuts and was rushed to the hospital. Wasn't able to play on Saturday. Missed a couple days of practice. He's playing now. He seems fine. It's one of those things where like I never really had that many allergies in my life. Like I had like one allergic reaction to a medicine and I was like throwing up for a couple hours and felt like death. But I feel like it's one of those things that doesn't really sound that serious until you actually like think about how serious that could be. Because I've seen people kind of like downplay it, but like, no, dude, he had to be rushed to a hospital. Like, there's a lot of people that'll die because of peanut allergies because they just can't breathe.
Yeah.
So, him kind of getting like those couple days off, like, who are we to say how severe or not severe his allergies are?
Yeah, we
You
we
know what I
don't
mean?
know.
Like, we're not doctors. We're not in the room with him. Like, we can't talk about that. Just, he's fine now. Hopefully, he's okay, but
They said this happened at practice.
a couple days ago, yeah. Or like he ate
It's
something and
crazy. It's wild. I wonder what it was.
yeah, because like someone made up a good point too of like it could have been nothing. Like it could have just been a thing of the food he ate accidentally got cross contaminated with peanut butter oil from like something that was cooked on the pan earlier. So it could be
Yeah,
something as innocent as that.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Scary though.
Who knows? That was just a theory
You,
some guy had. It wasn't like there was no
yeah, yeah.
base to it or anything. It was just like, oh, like it could have been something as simple as that.
No. Be careful with peanuts, guys. If you're allergic. If you're
Yeah.
not, don't. No need to be careful.
Yeah. Then moving on to a couple of trades and signing the Cowboys made. So Jordan Phillips, they traded a. It was one of the ones where it was a sixth round pick for Jordan Phillips and a seventh round pick. All the picks are in 2026. That's for any baseball fans. That is essentially trading a player for cash considerations. Um, did you
Hmm.
see the details of the trade? Because it was very interesting.
Wasn't it like there was like a fifth and a sixth in there, if I
No.
remember?
So it was so we gave a sixth and got him in the seventh back in
Oh,
2026.
okay. Yeah, that's
But
what I
there
was
was
thinking of.
I forget what the word, a condition to the trade that if he doesn't play 2 games for the Cowboys this year, then the draft picks go back.
What?
I've never seen that before, which is awesome because that is literally the definition of no risk for the
That's
Cowboys.
crazy.
There's literally no
So,
risk for the Cowboys. Um,
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like when you think about it, they're just like kind of gave the guy away.
yeah,
But
because he was probably gonna get cut anyways. And
yeah,
that's
that's what I'm
not the
saying.
thing in saying he's a bum. It's just that the Giants have such a deep defensive line room, and they just signed him as a free agent, so it's not like they had any ties to him.
Hmm.
But he's a big boy. He is a big boy that is going to be your Carlos Hankins replacement with a little more pass rush upside. So
Yeah,
I was just gonna say getting him for literally nothing if it doesn't pan out is incredible. It's awesome. It's definitely a
yeah.
great move.
I feel like every year the Cowboys always will add guys that like are out of their prime
Hmm.
and were like really good in their prime, but like they just pick them up for nothing. And it's just like a big name that like people know about, but it's like they're not the same. Like
Yeah.
Jordan Phillips was pretty good. I mean, he had 9.5 sacks, 2019.
For a D
Uh,
tackle, is pretty damn good.
yeah,
That's almost like the equivalent of like 15 sacks for a DN. And just don't talk about Aaron Donald having 20 sacks because that's like a million sacks. But regardless, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I guess like good veteran presence. He's succeeded before. Can't really
Yeah.
complain. We were talking about how they have no experience for like their wide receivers. So glad they at least added some veteran experience
Yeah.
on the D line.
Then Carl Lawson is another guy they signed. So when healthy, he is a very good player. And when he played, he was more of kind of like a guy that had to be that guy. But on this team, he's your fourth edge rusher, maybe your third edge rusher. So I really like the signing. I think they signed him for a little bit more than vet minimum. So realistically, not much. I think it was like $2 million, which I would not complain about signing for $2 million. But in terms of salary cap and all that, nothing realistically. But a move that I'm kind of more intrigued by to say is them trading Nashawn Wright for Andrew Booth. So Andrew Booth was a second round pick, I think it was 2 years ago, out of Clemson. He was a guy the Cowboys really liked, and a lot of people had the Cowboys like drafting him in like the first or second round. So in 2023, he played in 10 games, 151 total snaps. He had 8 targets, 4 receptions, only 30 yards allowed, and 1 pass breakup, and he missed 0 tackles. He had a 68.6 PFF grade, a 69.1 coverage grade, and remember, for those that don't know, 60 is average for PFF. So he was a decent bit above average in overall and as in coverage. So for a guy that was most likely going to get cut in Nashawn Wright, and a lot of people love the traits in going into the draft, I like the move.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about the guy. I'm kind of just learning about him now. But if Nashawn Wright was gonna get cut either way, like why not
Yeah.
take a chance on another guy? So excited to see what you have, Andrew Booth.
Especially when you put him in the Al Harris defensive back clinic. But then getting into the kind of preseason takeaways. So for game 1, Stenson Bennett sucks.
Yeah,
Like, he had 4 picks, the quarterback for the Rams, the 30-year-old second-year quarterback. Had 4 picks for the Rams. It should have been 5 or 6. But yeah, then game 2, just like general thing. One thing to remember is the Raiders had most of their starters playing for most of the game. The first snap of the game, Tyler Guyton was going up against Max Crosby. And then Max Crosby just got moved over to the right side of the line, so the left side for defensive players. But a lot of, like, Christian Wilkins, a guy they just gave a massive contract to, who's probably a top 3 defensive tackle, played a decent amount of the game. So that is worth noting before we get into all the players. Like, there were a couple of starters that did play overall for the teams they played. But then kind of everyone's going to want to talk about Trey Lance just because quarterback, whatever, so might as well start with him. He looked good when he got in a rhythm, just was a pretty slow starter. Because I have a take on this. What is your opinion on what he did so far?
I mean, like I didn't watch the game, but from the clips I saw, like he looked a lot better against the Raiders. Like, just didn't obviously never had a rhythm in the first preseason game, but second one he looked pretty solid. Like, only threw I think 6 incomplete passes. Looked pretty well, like running the ball too. So
Yeah.
definitely gave me a good amount of confidence. I know the Raiders, not the best defense, but
They
not a
have a
bad
good
defense.
D-line. They have a
Yeah,
they
no,
have
they have a
one
good
of
D
the
line. So.
I would argue they have one of the best D-lines in football, especially with Wilkins and Max Crosby playing.
Yeah. So overall, I'm encouraged. I feel not that I don't know if he's gonna win the backup job, but I would like to see him get the backup job.
Yeah, one thing that Jerry Jones said that I actually really do agree with, which shocker, but that if they really wanted to, like, if they were playing a game, that would not be the plays they would be calling. Where if you have a guy like Trey Lance, you're going to be running a lot more RPOs, you're going to be doing a lot more stuff where you're involving his legs. But the whole point of preseason is to get him more developed as a passer. So I think you saw an okay amount of progression. There obviously wasn't a lot of time, but like a decent amount of progression to the point where if he is your, how do I word this? I think the best case scenario for the Cowboys is that he progresses to a point where he looks good enough that you could trade him to another team for like a third round pick or a second round pick. I think that's really like best case scenario for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's like best case. I don't know if you're trading him for a third right now.
Not right now, but I'm saying like call it a year.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
what I
thought
mean,
you
like
were
a
talking
year
about.
where like he
I thought you were
has.
talking about like before the season starts.
No. Like you develop him for over like the course of a year.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Second, maybe, or like depending on how much he does develop. But, anyways, that's all on him. And then getting into the offensive line, I really wanted to highlight. There were a couple of guys that were pretty good. Brock Hoffman looked good. Asim Richards looked very good. But the two guys I wanted to highlight was the rookie picks that were two rookie players that were kind of a part of the same pick. Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe. Remember, they had the 24th pick, traded back, got Guyton with the pick they traded back, and also the pick they got, they drafted Beebe. Tyler Guyton had an 80 grade pass block, which was the highest graded rookie tackle, the 9th overall for a tackle, and I was just blown away with some of the things. First off, like, he's mean and a bully, which is awesome for an offensive line, and that is what you want. Like, he just looks for work, and that is all you want to see.
I know he really like has like people have been saying about it, like he has that dog in him.
Yeah.
Like he's like he goes for it. Like I saw like him like I saw the videos of him blocking Micah in practice. He looked really good.
Yeah, there were some
Like,
reps
for a
that was just
rookie.
stonewalling him.
For a rookie, like blocking that well against one of the best football players in football, arguably like could make an argument is the best defensive player in football. Doing that well that early in training camp, that's really impressive. Like the Cowboys always draft good old linemen, so I'm pretty confident that he's gonna be good.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway and the thing that kind of impressed me the most, I kind of teased you with this before we did it, is that his flaws are the things that make me the most excited about him, because he still is a little bit raw, sometimes leans a little bit too much one way or the other, maybe get a little too high, get a little too low, but he has just such freak size, such just like this freak strength and athleticism that he may get beat off the ball, but he'll make up for it during the rep. And you may beat him at first, but you're not beating him on the rep. So, see, him not doing well in the beginning of the play, but making up for it just proves that if he can hammer down some of the finer details, you're legitimately talking about one of the best tackles in football. And I don't even think that that's like, will that happen? Who knows? Because obviously that is a consistency thing that he will have to worry about. But the ceiling is absurd with this guy. And it is befuddling to me that he has come along this much in such a short amount of time. Obviously, preseason, but just what you see like with the technique and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna need it. Like we said, the run game is not the same as it was. We have Zeke, we have Dowdle, we have Royce Freeman. Not really sure who's gonna be like the number. I mean, Zeke is presumably the number one, but we'll see throughout the year. So
I think you can make
everyone
an
was
argument
complaining.
he's the fifth best running back on this team, but
That's kind of crazy. I do like Deuce Vaughn a lot. Deuce Vaughn did pretty well in this game.
yeah.
I think he averaged like 6.8. I would have liked to see like a lot. I heard a lot about him last preseason. I thought there was going to be more, like hype around him heading into the season, but he really got like no playing time. I
Yeah.
think he had like one good run early in the year
Yeah.
against like the Jets, but that was it. I would like to, but there's really not with Malik Davis too. There's really not much room for Goose Vaughn.
Um,
Get carries.
I'll kind of get into that in a minute, but one thing on the run game is I think that the biggest X factor is going to be Terrence Steele. Just if he can be healthy, because you saw in what was it 2022 before the ACL, he was I think the greatest, the best run blocker in all of football for
Hmm.
anything. Offensive line, tight end, anything. He was great as the best run blocker in all of football.
Which is crazy because he was so bad at first. Like
It,
he was
it's the Duke
actually
Manyweather
horrible.
effect. He is just incredible. He is such a good. He's so good at developing offensive linemen that it's absurd. But anyways,
And
I
he
still
just has
remember
so
when I
many
won.
penalties too.
I remember when I
He's
wanted him cut in like 2020, 2021 because he was so
same,
bad. And then he
so
turned
bad.
into like a top 3 right tackle in football out of the blue. Um, but Cooper Beebe, the other guy, the biggest thing that I was watching was the snaps. Just how he was with the snaps. Because some of them in training camp didn't look that good. I watched a video on all the snaps he played in the second game. I didn't see an issue with any of the snaps. Um, and there was he was going up against Christian Wilkins and John Jenkins. John Jenkins is a pretty solid defensive tackle. Christian Wilkins, as I said, is like a top 3 defensive tackle in football. And he was holding his own and doing pretty well against them. And like Guyton, he just has. He wants to bully people. He wants to kill people in the run game.
Mhm.
And like there was one play where people were saying he had like a dual barrel shotgun or double barrel shotgun because he literally just pancaked one guy, then did like a tilt, moved like 60 degrees to his right, and then pancaked another guy in a pass protection play. So that's the type of stuff where like he wants to kill you, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for Gaiden this season, I think. And BB, both of them.
Yeah, I
Should
just
be pretty fun.
I think that there's something to the run game overall being better than last year, just because of how I think this offensive line is going to be significantly better on the run.
Yeah. We're gonna need it because the run game was not the most strong
Yeah,
last season. Towards the end of the year, a little better.
yeah. I also just don't get why Zeke has not played yet. Where it's just
It's
like
Zeke, I don't know.
he doesn't deserve the like veteran treatment on this team. Like say that they signed. I'm trying to think. Say they signed Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary would be playing in the preseason. But
Yeah,
because it's Ezekiel Elliott, who's not as good of a running back, he's not playing just because of the name.
I know. It's just like it was probably just like, "Yo, Zeke, you want to play?" And he was like, "Nah." And they're like,
Even
"Yeah,
if
it's
it's only
fine."
a couple of snaps, like I still,
I
I
think he
don't
should
know.
absolutely be there for a few snaps.
I
Absolutely. Like
just,
I don't see a reason why, unless there's some injury that they're not telling us about.
I just because you look at the running back room, what does like I really want to see how he looks in comparison to Royce Freeman. Because him and
Hmm.
Royce Freeman would kind of be competing for that same job, like the goal line back, short yardage back. I want to see the difference between them. Like, how do they look in comparison to each other? Because I just don't get it. Because you look at Zeke, I was saying earlier how, like, you make an argument he's the 5th best running back on this team. I don't think there's really an argument. Rico Dowdle's the best one. Then you have your pick of Davis, Vaughn, and Freeman. All those guys can play special teams. You're not going to carry 4 running backs on a team and then not have one of them just not play special teams whatsoever. So I, I don't see It's just such a dumb situation, honestly, that they're
I,
in.
I can see the only argument is like he is just getting up there in carries, and he's getting older, so they just want to save his legs. They don't
Mm.
want to. But like 5 carries wouldn't kill him.
That's what I'm saying, like 3, 4 carries a game. Like nothing serious. You could even do a thing where if you want, it's literally 3 or 4 straight rushes or whatever. Or like do a thing where like he's on for 2 rushes, take him off, then like a couple snaps later do that so he doesn't have to pass protect. If you really
Mm.
want to do it that way. But
Have they said it? Did they say anything about him?
no.
Interesting. That's something to keep your eye on for game 3, I guess.
No. But then another player that didn't play in the preseason, but for, but a lot of fans are having the complete opposite reaction to, Jalen Tolbert. He didn't suit up for the first game of the preseason. He played, I think, like 3 snaps in the second game of the preseason. That just shows how good of a camp he's been having. That the wide receiver 3, people are saying that it's been a battle his entire camp. One of the guys that's fighting for it's not even suiting up, and you know he's guaranteed going to make the roster. I don't see how that's not locked up.
Yeah, no, we talked about this on last episode, but it's gonna be Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah. Especially with all you hear about, like, oh, him and Dak, their connection, yada, 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 whatever. But one guy I just wanted to touch on was Ryan Flournoy, the Cowboys'
I was
7th
gonna
round
talk
pick.
about him.
If you
Had a
wanted
nice
to,
catch.
yeah.
Well, I was just gonna mention him too,
Yeah.
'cause he did look good.
He was like beefing with the Raiders starter. I forget his name, but it was like one of their starting cornerbacks, and they were like getting into it the entire game, just like like wide receiver corner stuff. And he ended up like catching a touchdown on him and kind of just like looking at like just dusted him off the line. And you also got to remember he had a touchdown last game against the 49ers or against the Rams, but Trey Lance just didn't get the ball to him. It was kind of like that fade in the end zone. It just wasn't completed.
Hmm.
So I really like what I see. I love the traits. The reason they drafted him was because he's an athletic freak. Realistically, I think he still needs a couple things more developed because he was a 7th round pick, so he probably does spend a year on the practice squad. And then next year kind of fight for that wide receiver 4 spot. Maybe you don't know what happens with Brandon Cooks. Maybe he leaves and he kind of fights for that wide receiver 3, 4 spot. But I like the future of Flournoy.
Yeah, no, I was encouraged by what I saw. I watched the highlights of that game. Uh, I've been hearing a little about him, so yeah, maybe. I agree. I don't think he makes the roster, but he'll
They
definitely be
also
a
part of the reason they did draft him is he's a very good special teams player. So I could see him being like kind of like the last receiver on the roster. Cuz you look at the roster, you could definitely pencil in 4 guys. And Ceedee, hopefully you could pencil in
Hopefully.
Ceedee. Brandon
hope
Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Cavante Turpin. Those 4 you could just lock right in no matter what.
Yeah.
Say you carry 5 or 6 receivers. I don't know how many they're going to carry. It just depends how many of them can play special teams. If they carry 2 more and it's a thing of him, like him versus the other 2 Jalen's, I could see a world where maybe he gets over one of them. Maybe. But if they only carry 5, I don't see how he makes the roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. If they have a 6, I mean, there's Jalen, Brooks, and Moreno, Cropper. So he's really just fighting with those guys.
Yeah. It also would just be sick if they just had an army of Jalen's as their wide receiver core. They just had 3 Jalen's in their wide receiver core.
That would, I mean, we would probably be the first team in NFL history with 3 Jalen's at wide receiver.
Let's see. Has a NFL team ever had 3 wide receivers with the same first name? No, I can't find anything. I found an article, the NFL all-time names team. Okay, that's a sick one for quarterback Chuck Long.
Long.
Running
What a
back
name.
Max Strong. Ooh, this is a sick one. Webster Slaughter.
Oh my God, that's an incredible name.
As a wide receiver too, like you're catching it in a web and like Webster
Run,
Slaughter.
goes
I'm
deep to
going way
slaughter.
off topic, but
But that no, I love this though.
it's with an S, not a Z. Let me just say that. Cap Boso.
That's
Cap
incredible.
Bozo.
These are. I'm so happy that you're telling me these names because these are just great. These are great
I
football names.
Pork Chop Womack as a guard.
That's just not a real person. That pork chop Womack. What?
Coy Bacon.
We're just naming like
Jack
fucking.
Youngblood. I'm gonna butcher this one so bad. Barkevius Mingo.
I've heard that. I swear I've heard of that guy before. I
Some
don't
of
know
these names
why,
are
but I've heard of
crazy.
Arcavius Mingo.
Can't forget about Dick Butkus.
Yeah, obviously, legend.
I'm going off such a tangent, but this is hilarious. Bakar. Ooh, that's sick as a corner. Bakari Rambo. I feel like that's more a linebacker, but that's still a sick name.
Rambo.
What
I like
is?
that.
What is? A return specialist, Johnny Blood McNally. Okay, that
Well,
was
that
that was a list.
I liked Slaughter.
Yeah,
Slaughter was
the
the best
Webster
one.
Slaughter had to have been the best
Webster
one.
Slaughter. That's incredible. You need a Webster Slaughter.
Yeah. If his name ain't Webster Slaughter, I ain't want him. Oh,
Did you see the punt return by Moreno Cropper? Where he just
yes.
he like got touched on his leg and then just dropped the ball. Like that was
I
crazy.
think so.
I was just watching the highlights and I saw he returned it and he got like touched, but
Hmm.
and nobody like right in front of him. He just dropped the ball
Yeah.
and just pretty much handed it. It was like one of the most pathetic fumbles
I'm trying to
I've seen.
remember it because I was like falling asleep when I was watching the game.
Hmm.
But I remember seeing that happen, but I was like,
Yeah, so not that it matters preseason, but
yeah.
it was kind of a funny
But
fumble.
that is the stuff that you watch, like the kind of like the self-inflicted things
Yeah.
that like a lot of the coaches, all of them, are watching for stuff like that.
Well, maybe Flournoy made the roster because of that.
Who knows?
Probably, probably not, but
Yeah.
maybe. I'm a Ryan Flournoy guy though now. Like I'm supporting him over the Jalen's.
Yeah.
Just to on the record.
Whoa! Not Tolbert. Not the other two Jalen's.
Not
Yeah.
Tolbert, not okay. Obviously he's not going to make the roster over Jalen Tolbert, but I'll
Yeah.
support him over Brock and Cropper.
Yeah. Then going on to the defensive side of the ball, Chauncey Goldston and Marcus Nealon, two guys that I was really impressed with. Goldston was kind of one of those tweener guys for a while. Kind of played tackle, played D end, but they're kind of using him as solely a D end. He's looked a lot better now. Marshawn, not Marcus Nealon. Marshawn Nealon, he was second round pick. A lot of people had him as like a late first round pick. They ended up getting him late second. The strength and the like twitchiness are clear in the run game. It's just the pass blocking game that he kind of needs to get a little more consistent in. But I loved what I saw in the run game from him. And he reminds me of an early. A lot of people. This is a pretty easy comp, and a lot of people gave it when he got drafted. Just DeMarcus Lawrence, in the sense of how good he is in the run game, and because you don't see that necessarily as much anymore as you used to see it, where he's just an incredible run defender. Yeah. But then, moving on to the linebackers, you had, oh my god, why can't I remember his name? And I didn't write it down. Oh my god, whatever. Overshown, looked very good. He looked like you just point and shoot missile. He was just flying to the ball. He doesn't look like he missed a step since the ACL injury, which is incredible. But the guy that I was very impressed with, because I wasn't expecting as much, is a guy that I am not going to be able to pronounce his name, and I'm going to butcher it so badly. Maurice Liafau. I think it's Liafu. I forget which one it is, but regardless, a lot of the things of he's not like the best athlete, but where he wins is how just his instincts. So for training camp, you couldn't really judge a guy like that because it's all instincts. And training camp, it's not actual game, but when you saw him in game, he was just flying to the ball. And both of those guys just impressed me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have many notes on this game. Didn't watch it, so
Yeah.
don't have many notes on defensive. But I don't know if you're done with defensive players, but I did want to say Brandon Aubrey.
I had one
Holy
more. I
shit.
had you could talk about Aubrey.
Yeah, holy shit, man. With the Cowboys just have a thing where they just are able to find these kickers out of nowhere that are able to kick like the longest field goals ever.
Yeah.
Like, how did we even find this guy? And now he's just like one of the best kickers in the NFL. 72? They said it was good from 72.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that every time we get to the 50, like we're just good.
You get
And we
into the
can
other side of the
we,
field and he can kick a field goal.
yeah. Like even before the 50, we get to the 45. We're on 45 and we're like, fuck it, let's just kick it from here.
Yeah.
He can make it.
And just for those that don't know, he made a 66-yard field goal, which tied the NFL record. But Next Gen Stats said it would have been good from 72. But then just one more point I had on linebackers was Damone Clark. He said that he was sending his film to Van Der Esch and to Sean Lee for just like critiques and like what he could do better. I love that because I feel like Van Der Esch and Sean Lee were both like the definition, kind of like those heady linebackers and like quote unquote field generals. And that was kind of like the thing where like they were the brains of the defenses when they played, and that's why they were so good. But then the last position I wanted to talk about was the safeties, just how deep of a room they have, where you obviously have Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker that are two great safeties, and you had two guys that were arguably the stars of the defense all the first two games in Wanya Thomas and Marquise Bell, and Bell, I think, had an interception, almost had two. Then he had another play where he didn't have an interception, but it was just as impressive as having an interception. And then you also have a guy like Israel Makamu, who has a lot of talent. So how they're going to work this secondary between the corners and the safety is going to be very... They have a lot of talent, and I'm very curious to see how they do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sign that we've had what already? We had 4 picks in the first game. We had a pick 6 in the last game, which is we always turn the ball over, and it looks like this year's going to be the same as always.
I forget the name.
As always, the same as last year at least.
Yeah, I forget the name of the corner because they just signed him or claimed him off waivers. I forget his name, but that's another thing too, where it's like he just got cut, and I remember people talk about how like they like some of the traits with him, and he already had a pick 6. So who knows how that goes? And that kind of reminds me of a point I forgot to talk about on Jordan Phillips. When he played in the second game of preseason, he didn't practice with the Cowboys at all. He just they were like, all right, buddy, suit up and get on out there. And he played like 10 snaps. Which I thought was just hilarious.
That is pretty funny.
Oh,
Just go play. Just play
Go
football.
on, buddy. Yeah, but did you have anything else on any of the players?
Not really, no. I didn't watch the games, so
Yeah.
don't have a ton to say.
The last point I had overall was just Mike Zimmer. they quote. I want to say it was Wanye Thomas that said it. I could be. It could be someone else. Regardless, a player that was playing the first preseason game said that he would look over at Mike Zimmer and he wouldn't be reading the play sheet while calling plays. Like he literally just wouldn't be looking at it while calling the plays. He would just be calling plays by instinct, and I love that because Dan Quinn, a big issue that at least I felt, and I know a lot of people had the same issue, was that he was too scripted in the way that he did, where like he wouldn't really adjust for the situation, or like it felt the defense kind of got punched in the mouth early. They weren't ready for it because they were kind of following a script. So I love that Mike Zimmer just doesn't follow a script. He just does whatever is right in the moment. I
Yeah,
just, that was the amount of football IQ you have to be able to do that is insane.
yeah. I love that. I love to hear that. Mike Zimmer, I mean, he's been a coach for a while, so it doesn't surprise me that he'd be able to do that. But yeah, like if you're, like you said, like we need to make adjustments on the fly. That's something that I feel like our coaches aren't the best with, or they have like in the
Yeah.
past, and especially like Quinn in that playoff game against the Packers. Although we
Yeah.
did look, it did defense looked a little better in the second half, but it was too bad. It was too little, too late.
Mm. Um, that's really all I have from kind of this strand of games, camp, all that. The Cowboys' last preseason game is on the Saturday, August 24th at 4 o'clock against the Chargers. It'll be their first home game. I forget. I want to say they're back in Fresno for camp. I want to say they're done with Oxnard. So they're back in Dallas. So you realistically have this game and then 2 weeks and then the regular season. So it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited. Just get CD done, and then I can fully focus on the first week.
Yeah.
So, but I'm excited. The next episode's gonna be good. We're just gonna talk about, the season preview, any predictions, takes, just reviewing everything. And then episode after that, we'll be talking about week one. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
My fantasy teams really need CD to be back. Um, but yes, God, this team is so just you've had some injuries so far, but nothing to a very serious degree. So let's just hope they get out of preseason, get out of camp, get out of everything, no more injuries. And yeah, if you got nothing else, I'll take us away.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody's watched all the way through, appreciate it. Thank you.
For those listening, I just gave you guys a heart emoji. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Definitely fun talking about the Cowboys. We will starting to really get ramped up now, which is exciting yet terrifying at the same time because my weeks are about to be made or ruined by 53 men on a football team, plus a geriatric owner. But on that note, please follow us on all social media, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that, at Silver and Blue Insights. On Spotify, please rate us. Please give us a review, all that stuff. It really does help us out. And on that note, I will see you guys the next one.
Peace.